I have a lot of things on my mind, and I think the main point of this video, I hope, will be to, talk to others, to make them a little more aware of how you can help somebody who has been through a very traumatic experience. When I'm talking trauma, I'm talking life-shattering, not today's watered-down version of trauma from all the crybabies. I'm talking about some real stuff here. 6 years ago, I had a very traumatic experience. I had an ancestry DNA test done, and it came out that I was not my father's, the man who raised me, who has always been there for me. I was not his. I was the product of an affair or a one-night stand or whatever it was between my mom and his best friend, her best friend's husband. I grew up with these people. I stayed at their house. I never knew that I shared blood, and these girls that I spent the night with were my half-siblings. Putting that aside, I want to talk about how I was not helped at all, and I had no support around me at all, and how people can better support each other, especially Christians. Here was my biggest issue. I was being told that I needed to forgive right away or God wouldn't forgive me. And I wasn't given any time to really process it. And I wasn't allowed to be angry. I wasn't allowed to be hurt. I wasn't allowed to grieve and process all the things I felt like were a lie for 48 years of my life. And the church really has to stop doing this to people. You really got to stop telling people that they need to give instant forgiveness before they've even been able to process something in their mind and in their heart. It is not helpful. This is why we have so many hurt people being hurt by the church and just being completely ignored because they're told instant forgiveness and they're not given help for trauma. This has caused me 6 years later, I still can't trust anybody. Thankfully, I had trust Jesus, but that took me a long time to do because I lost my trust. Everything was a lie, and I lost my trust in everybody. Not just because of that, but because I didn't have any support. Half the people were telling me to forgive right away, and half the people were making a mockery and making it about gossip and fodder and, just talking and making jokes about my mom, and their deep-seated, obviously, issues that they might have had with my mom were coming out because all they wanted to do was talk about her in awful ways. I'm sure I might have participated at first, but after a while, it just got to be that it was just fun and games and gossip for people to go around, psh, 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 did you hear about Denise? Psh, psh, psh. So I cut a lot of people off. My life, my trauma was nothing for gossip fodder, and most of the women that were saying things about my mother had absolutely no room to talk about sexual immorality or adultery. I'm not saying that to be hateful. I'm just saying, pull the plank out of your own eye. And if you're not a Christian, think about what you're reaping and sowing and how it will come back to you. Just because you got away with your adultery and your sexual immorality, and my mom got caught through a blood test, doesn't make you any less guilty. So I'm just going to put that out there. You people were no help to me at all. And people, I think, tried to help, but I didn't trust anybody. I didn't trust anybody. And there was nobody there to talk to. And when you're poor and you don't really have access to the right kind of counseling and trauma-type counseling or EMDR, from domestic violence, child molestation, everything else that I had already dealt with in life that never healed from. it's been really hard for me. I can't trust anybody. I think everybody's going to turn around and hurt me, that everybody's lying to me, so I don't get close to anybody. And I think the church is very guilty of telling people that they need to forgive people right away. And I wasn't even in the church when that news came out. A year later, I gave my life over and surrendered to Jesus. But even then, once I got into the church, I was betrayed in ministry. And again, I was told, forgive. Talking about it as gossip and slander. I was having scriptures thrown at me about gossiping and slandering, and all I was trying to do was process that horrible hurt I was going through. And there was nobody to talk to. Nobody to talk to. You won't understand this if you have the money to go and get help and counseling and you have supportive people around you. But at this point, I already wasn't trusting people, and I did start to trust, like, Christians. As a baby Christian, I was starting to trust people within the church. And then that happened in ministry, and it just got worse. And then I became homeless as a result of the things that happened in ministry. And everybody just kept telling me, forgive, forgive, forgive. How come when I'm just learning how to trust and I'm sharing my story and all the healing that I have done, I'm instantly accused of not forgiving? How do we help others if we don't share the things that happened to us and how the Lord has helped us through it? He is still, working through it with me. But you gotta stop telling people to be silent, because if they speak about their trauma, they're not forgiving. That's not true. How do you stand up and let people, people stand up in front of the church and they give their testimonies, and somehow that's a good thing. But if somebody talks about the hurt that they're currently going through and the ways God has directed them so far, they're told to be silent, and they're not forgiving, and God's not going to forgive them if they don't forgive these people. Talking about your trauma and talking about the things that have wrecked your life, and just because those people are still alive doesn't mean you haven't forgiven them. It took me a good 9 months to be able to forgive my mother. And you know what got me into forgiveness was Bible study and the Forgiven and Set Free Abortion Recovery Bible Study. I was coerced into an abortion when I was 19. That's another trauma I never got help for. I shoved it in the back of my brain like I've been doing everything my whole life, because that's the only way I knew how to do it. And I would numb it with relationships, or I'd go out and get, a drunk weekend or whatever. And I never faced and dealt with any of these things, because I was just so used to bad things happening in my life that I didn't even realize they were traumatic. I just figured they were normal stuff, just normal things normal people go through. And that Bible study, Forgiven and Set Free, was definitely a godsend, because it made me able to not only forgive other people in my life who had hurt me that had nothing to do with the abortion, but it helped me forgive myself for the things that I had done to others and for what I did to my baby. But it's a process. That whole Bible study is a process, and he had to go through the different chapters to even get to forgiveness. So why does the church expect people to forgive people that have caused them trauma right away without processing it? There's lots of things that people go through in their life that are even, just as bad as abortion, and traumatize them just as bad. Just like this thing with my DNA. You don't understand if you haven't been there. I had people tell me, you had a dad raise you, you have a dad. And they completely invalidated how I felt and completely dismissed my pain and hurt. Not realizing that I'd gone through life with a lot of illnesses and stuff that I was finally able to pinpoint, because I had the correct information to give a doctor, and he was able to run a genetic test on me that revealed one of my autoimmune diseases that wasn't being treated. This is the harm that's done by not telling the truth. And I was able to get through and forgive, but that doesn't mean that the remnants, I'm not allowed to talk about my inability to trust, that I'm not allowed to talk about, hey, this happened to me, and I can be out there helping other people, because there's a lot of people out there that are getting these DNA tests and they have nowhere to turn because they have no support, because people don't understand the depth of the betrayal. And you know, I was 48. There was women in my support group that I was in at the time that were in their 80s, men and women, and had just found out that their parents that are gone had lied to them. And you can't church people. Stop telling people they need to forgive instantly when they've gone through a trauma that needs to be worked through. Thank God if you've never had trauma that caused any kind of PTSD or any kind of wrecking and betrayal to your life, and how you knew it flipped your life upside down. Thank God if you've never had that. Just thank him. You are blessed. But this telling people to forgive and just shove their hurt into the back of their mind and get over it, it's damaging. And it damaged me. And here I am 6 years later. My life is still upside down. I have the Lord, and he's sustained me and brought people into my life to help me. But I am still a mess in my mind. I still don't trust people. I think when people do nice things for me, what do you want from me? I don't trust people. And I just want you to know, please, please, don't invalidate somebody when they've gone through a betrayal of that degree. Don't invalidate them and say, hey, you had a dad, or hey, let's mock your mom and make fun of her. And let's, do everything but get you some help. I didn't have help, and I still don't have the correct help, because I still don't have the ability to get it. And what's the point of going to a church and trying to get counsel when the pastors will tell you, you just need to forgive? I have forgiven. How do I trust, though? My trust is broken. I'm hurt. There's a lot of things that happened in my life that just feel like they were never true. There's a lot of loose ends that couldn't be tied up because my biological father died. And I've, tried to have a relationship with a new family, and I couldn't, because I don't trust anybody. I just feel like everybody was in it too. It just felt like a soap opera to me. And everybody wanted to say mean things about my mom. Yeah, when I was unforgiving, I listened to those things, but there was always an aching in the back of my mind to say, well, I've been a pretty crappy mother too. And I have. Thankfully, my Bible study helped me through a lot of that stuff, but I have estranged relationships with my 2 daughters. I have 3 children, and 2 of them don't talk to me, because I was a bad mother too, and I had to face the things that I had done as well. So there's all this stuff is mixed up and messed up in my life, and that estrangement happened after all this stuff came out. So it's been one thing after another, and all people tell you to do is let it go and forgive when you try to talk about it. And all I want to do is talk through it. All I want is somebody to support me and understand without telling me and shaming me and guilting me that I'm not forgiving. I am forgiving, but I need to heal, because I don't trust anyone but Jesus. And that, like I said, was quite the work in its own. And then when people in the church hurt me with the ministry, that almost shook my faith. But thankfully, I am indwelled with the Holy Spirit, And I knew that those are people, infallible people, and they have nothing to do with Jesus. They have nothing to do with our Almighty God. They are not representing him well, and I don't represent him well either a lot of times. So I guess I probably got way off course today. And I will be talking eventually about the abortion and the recovery and how that really ripped and turned my life upside down and everything else in my life. But I really wanted to talk about this today. Stop telling people they have to instantly forgive. You are invalidating their trauma and their betrayal and their hurt. And you are not helping them. You are making it hurt more. And you're making them unable to heal and prolonging the healing because you're not getting to the heart of the issue. Telling somebody if you don't forgive them, God won't forgive you, and not digging into the pain they're feeling. That's not honoring to God at all. He doesn't want us to hurt. He doesn't want us to not trust people. He wants us to be fully healed. And sometimes we need some outside help. Hopefully this will help somebody learn something new today. And if there's anybody out there that has gone through this DNA stuff, if you want me to talk more about and go into that, I will do that as well. I have felt guilty talking about it because my parents are still alive, my dad who raised me and my mother, and I felt guilty talking about it, like I'm not allowed to talk about it, and it has directly affected me and turned my life upside down. And I shouldn't have to feel guilty that I talk about it because it's hurt me. Sometimes it is about us. And that doesn't mean that I don't forgive, and I want to point fingers and I want to say that she did this or she was this or that, because that's not it at all. I have my own sins. I have my own immoralities. I have my own things that I've done that were awful. But I got to be able to talk about what turned my life upside down. Because if I don't, it will be shoved in the back of my head, just like the abortion was for years, just like the child molestation was for years, just like the domestic violence was for years. And I can't live like that